Welcome to the Frannie and JoJo show. I'm JoJo.
And I am Frannie.
And it's been a minute since we have done this. Today we are talking about growing up Italian.
Yeah.
And both of us have been blessed to be raised in homes with Italian parents, and we have lots of stories about our grandparents and all of the wonderful things that we have had to endure
and encounter in our life.
Being Italian.
It's fun being Italian,
yes,
isn't it?
Indeed.
We got crazy stories, good stories.
I was thinking about my grandparents that were married for 65 years. And you know, it's funny, I'm older now, but when you're young, you look at your family, you look at your grandparents, you think, God, they're so old, right? They just look so old, and you think they don't know anything. You think they can't hear, they can't see, they go pee every 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. I go pee every 5 minutes, so I must be really old.
It's funny when you think back to when you were young, you know, and you think back to things. But I remember my grandparents would always talk about, they would tell stories about when they had first met. And they were married 65 years, which I don't think I've lasted 65 minutes. Just kidding. No, but I remember my grandfather talked about how they didn't have a car when they first got married for several years. And I learned this today, that my grandfather worked in the steel mill for 42 years. And their lives were different then. They were simpler, almost kind of like COVID, right? Things shut down and on weekends, and they would have Sunday dinners. And I remember my grandmother talked about every week my grandfather would go pick up 5-pound bag of flour. And every week she would go through that 5-pound bag of flour, making homemade everything. So her whole life worshipped the kitchen. That was her whole life, right?
Old school, those old school Italians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, every morning, I remember when I would go to visit them as a teenager, that was her whole thing, was planning the menu for the day. And I remembered waking up and the coffee would be on. It was always real strong. You could smell the aroma of the coffee beans. And then there would be dough that she had punched. She would punch the dough every morning.
Because she was practicing. You know.
Yeah, and her and my grandfather,
what she really wanted to do to her husband,
they would fight like hell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She'd scream at him, you know, good F&B.
Yeah.
She'd yell at him, and then 1 minute later they'd kiss and say, I love you.
It's so
before
normal.
he'd leave the door.
So normal, so normal.
Were your grandparents like that too?
My grandmother died when I was 5, and my grandparents died when I was very young.
Okay.
So I really don't have the memories that you have. But also, Joelle is a lot younger than me. Okay.
I am not.
Yes, you are. 8 years.
I'm 29 on one side. So there you go.
She's like 8-9 years younger than me. So, anyways.
So did you have an opportunity to be around your grandparents on your mom's side or your dad's side at all after 5, or?
My mom's side.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
But I grew up with a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins, and a
lot of cooking?
Oh.
Did the women work, or did they stay home?
Well, my father was from Italy, so everything was made from scratch, and we had gardens in the summer.
Oh, there you go.
Because we lived back east, so we couldn't have a garden in the winter, you know?
Yeah.
So.
My grandfather, too. And in the cellar, every summer they would can everything.
Oh, so, canned tomatoes.
Canned tomatoes, right? And canned hot peppers.
Yep.
And I remember when I would go in the cellar, there would be hot peppers hanging from the ceiling, right? And they would dry them.
And dead carcasses.
For real. What kind of dead carcasses?
Oh, pigs.
Really? I don't remember that. Maybe I'd missed all that. But I remembered there was a dish that my grandmother used to make every summer when I would go visit. Besides her iced tea with mint. Oh, they had fresh mint they'd pick out of the garden and make the fresh iced tea. But then she always had these peppers hanging, and she'd get them and fry them in olive oil and garlic. And then fry them so much so that they were crispy. Oh, my mouth is watering. And then she'd put hot peppers on them, and they were called bubaci crush. And you'd eat them like a potato chip. And I miss those.
Yeah.
You can't find those out here on the West Coast.
There's
right?
not a lot of Italian culture out here like people think there is. There's really not. It's more on the East Coast.
Yeah.
It really is. There's not good authentic Italian bakeries. I mean, Sienna's good, but that's
pricey.
Yeah,
right?
It's really pricey.
I mean, even some of the restaurants are really, really pricey. We were just talking with the producer of the show who was mentioning that he went to a very well-known Italian restaurant in town, and even just for a dish of bolognese was like, $30. It's like, okay, I get it. Everybody has to survive, but
yeah, but that's a turn
what's in
off.
Bolognese?
It's a total turn off, you
Right?
know? Come on.
No.
What was in it? 14 karat gold? I mean, somebody's finger?
No
what was in it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, I think one of the things I've really tried to keep in my family is the traditions of family. Every weekend I try to have my mom over and her husband and my stepdad, and I try to show my son, we try to have celebrations once a year with the family and try to make, keep the family together. It's really important.
It is.
I think as you get older, you realize that your circle gets smaller, right?
And it should. Yeah.
I just remember my grandparents, every weekend there was people at their house. They would feed all the neighbors. My grandmother would make pizzas and she'd go knock on the doors and hand the pizzas. And
See, my parents were like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Lot of people around,
yeah.
right?
Our door was always open. There was always cooking, and we lived in an Italian neighborhood. All the neighbors were like that. So I grew up very authentically Italian. Like I said, my father's from Italy, and my mother's parents were from Italy. So it's like that's all I knew. We never went to McDonald's. All my American friends.
Yeah, if you did, it was like a big deal to go to McDonald's. We would go once a year or something.
We weren't allowed. We weren't allowed.
Yeah.
I didn't have McDonald's until I was a cheerleader when I was 13 years old. I tried my first McDonald's.
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
I think that it was like that for us too, only because every day my mother cooked. She made something, and I do that. Every day we cook. We make it a point to cook every day. We don't really go out and eat very often, and if we do, it's hard to compare what you eat at home to what you eat out.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I remember you were talking about that your family was Italian. You grew up in an Italian neighborhood, and I remember my grandmother shared this story with us that the neighborhood she grew up in Briar Hill in Youngstown, Ohio. The neighbor next door was a mafia family, and every Sunday the black Cadillacs would pull up. And they would all come for dinner. And I didn't know this, but if they liked the food, somebody would leave $100 bill under the plate, right? If the food sucked, the person that cooked wouldn't. If they didn't find a $100 bill, then they should worry.
Yeah, because they could end up in the trunk. All right. So I'm just saying.
Well, and it's funny, back in the day, I think a lot of those secrets were buried with your friends and family. Today it's different. You have social media, you have cell phones, you have camera. Everybody's got a camera. There's no secrets. You can put cameras in your house. You can spy on somebody. It's different today. Back then you'd have to really follow someone around, right?
Exactly.
And different like today. But I remember, any family secrets that were spoken about or discussed always died with the family, right?
As it should.
Yeah. It's crazy. So do you have a trivia question?
I forgot to write my normal trivia question on my index cards like everybody's used to seeing me do over the past couple of years. But who do you think invented the toilet? Was it the Hungarians? Was it the Russians, or was it the Italians?
Was it Columbus? Wow. Well, that's interesting. Because we're growing up Italian, of course, it's got to be a Dago. So I'm going to say the Italians.
The Romans.
The Romans.
The
The Roman bath.
The Romans invented the toilet.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Very nice. That's
the
interesting.
And they invented the typewriter. They invented
Really?
quite a bit of stuff.
Oh, I didn't
And I
realize
promise you on our next show, I will have my index cards with my trivia questions.
Very
I've
nice.
just been working a lot, so I mean, when I get home, I'm exhausted.
All right.
But I'm glad to be here.
Okay.
Because we missed you guys, right?
Yeah, well,
We've
it's
missed
been a
you
crazy couple of
Yeah.
months. We always try to come back to this and discuss our family heritages. You know, it's funny, I was thinking about this the other day, and I told my mom, I said I was going to talk about this, but when I was a little girl, I was obsessed with older people and wondered if they had sex. Right? I thought to myself, I wonder if old people still
Wait,
have sex when
excuse
they're
me, if
married.
there's young children in the room, please.
No, this
take
is
them
just
out
an
of the
honest
room.
question. No,
No,
it's
just kidding.
No, but so I would always ask my grandmother, Grandma, is there sex after 60? I would always ask her that, you know, because I always thought, well, when
answer
you're
is no.
old, you don't kiss anymore, you don't have, there's no, right? And she would always say to me, honey, of course there's sex after 60. And I would say to her, well, how do you know? And she'd say, well, honey, when Grandpa, how would she say, if he asks me to salute the flag, I salute it.
Oh.
That was her answer. I never understood that.
Wow. She'll have to answer to God for that. Okay.
But I think there was just so many little things that as you get older, you don't realize, you know, when I think back to my grandparents, when they were always fighting, you know, and you just never thought that they were in love ever, because they just acted like they couldn't stand each other. But I guess, you know, you don't really know until you live with somebody that there's going to be that animosity after that many years. Everything, you know them so well, right?
Yeah, there's two different personalities, and then you're stuck, and if one has to go potty before the other one, I mean, that right there can cause a
Well, they
concussion.
only ever had one bathroom. I remember my grandmother said they had an outhouse in the back. I couldn't imagine. I'm so glad I was born in this time of life, because I don't think I'm not that girl. I'm a glamper, not a camper.
Can you imagine Joanne
No.
going in an outhouse?
No. Well, I mean, come on now. You know,
There
I
would
think
be an
anybody wants to
earthquake,
think about
7.9.
No, I
on
don't
the
think
Richter
I
scale
don't
with
think
after
you wanna
effects.
think about that. But I know I'm definitely not that girl that likes to be stuck outside, and especially in this heat that we live in here in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's in the triple digits right now, and I can't imagine being raised without a fan. My mother said they didn't have fans, and she said it was so hot back east, it was in the triple digits over there with humidity.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So anyway,
Yeah.
well, it has been wonderful coming back to our Italian heritage and our roots and discussing things. And we have really enjoyed coming back to talk about these things with you, our audience. And
And we're really hungry, so we're actually, to be honest with you, we
we're
are
going to lunch.
we are going to lunch. So if you see pictures of us in a restaurant in the next couple hours on Facebook, it's really us, okay?
Well, we want to thank you so very much
Yeah.
for joining us today on Growing Up Italian. I'm JoJo.
And I'm Frannie.
And we're the Frannie and JoJo Show. We hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Hee-haw!